Ladies and gentlemen, you are listening to the Pranzata podcast. This is your host, Andrea Pranzatelli. We have a special guest today. I'm finally figuring out how to this is my first attempt at the Zoom podcast, so bear with me. I hope the quality is good for you guys. It should get better and better as I figure it out. So today we have Christyann Kanooble. She is a comedian. She is an author. She is a businesswoman and a mother, all on top of that. So I have a lot of questions to unpack with her. So before we get into it, if you're new to this channel, don't forget to hit subscribe. This is a channel where I interview comedians, musicians, and I also do and other types of business owners and stuff, by the way, not just comedians and musicians. I branch out to other things as well. But if that interests you, don't forget to hit subscribe, like, and please leave a comment on anything we talk about in the conversation. I want to know your thoughts if you agree or disagree with, certain things we talk about. But anyways, let's get right into it. First question for you. I had asked you to give me a write-up explaining what, the types of things you do. So that could guide me to ask questions for you. And one thing that really popped out in my mind was that you run something called the Mentally Kill Project. So my question for you is, what is that? Because it sounds very interesting.
So I started it under the name the Mentally Kill Project, but it's a nonprofit that I'm working on under the name The Mind That Matters. That's the actual nonprofit.
Okay.
It started as Mentally Kill Project, and it really started with an informational podcast. This was after I had just got my diagnosis last year. I took a grippy sock vacation, as I like to call it, which is an extended stay at a facility. But I got diagnosed with a bunch of mental health conditions, and I realized that I wasn't getting the information that I needed. It was just kind of like, hey, you're a borderline. Here's an emotion wheel. Good luck. And I was like, so do I have multiple personalities? It was like, oh, just one crappy one. Got it. Cool. Okay. And I learned that from Pinterest, and I was like, this is not okay. This should not be the way that people get educated when they get diagnosed with mental health conditions. It's scary enough. Yeah. So I started with an informational podcast. The first season, it goes over the 12 main mental health conditions, kind of bite-sized forms for people who don't want to really know the whole shebang, just enough to maybe not trigger someone or know if they have them. Yeah. And then the second season goes over disorders, which there's 400 of, and then phobias there are 300 of. So the third season of that. And then I started doing interviews with people around the world who have different mental health conditions, as well as medical professionals, coaches, advocates, and I've even branched out to friends and family members of those who have mental health conditions to give a real in-depth look at what life looks like living with symptoms when you have a condition, and to show that we can still live fulfilled lives even with them, and that we can still, strive on. And it's gone so much further than that since then, that it's just taken on its own life. And there's lives every week, and a whole platform's being built. It might move to TV. It's just a big thing. So.
And before I have more questions about this, but before we get into it, where can we find this? Because as people are listening, if that's something that resonates with people, I can put something in the comment section below or the information section below when I edit this, but where can we find your Mentally Kill Project? Is it like a YouTube or is it a podcast? What is it?
So right now the podcast I'm holding because I'm working on the new website, which is going to be under themindthatmatters.org. But for right now, you can find everything under mentallyKillProject.org. I do launch new episodes, supposed to be every Friday, but to be fair, it's a one-woman show. I'm a little bit behind. God, bear me some Black people. I'm only one person.
I can relate to that 100%. I'm a one-woman, as we were saying before we started recording. I'm also a one-woman show, so I understand the stress of that. But I also believe that what you're doing sounds like it's kind of snowballing on its own, and it's something that people need. So I have faith that you're going to kind of build a team around your one-woman show here,
Thank you. And I do have a couple people that I do have on the team, but I'm a Virgo. And when it comes to editing videos and doing the interviews themselves, I've already done over 150 of them. So it's just kind of I know how I want them to go. Yeah. And they're only 20-minute interviews. So really editing wise, it's not that big of a deal. It's just me sitting down and doing it.
Yeah. Are you big into, you said you're a Virgo. Are you big into the astrology thing?
It's not that I'm big into astrology, but I am very I need to be in control. I need to make sure it's done right. It needs to be done the way because I set a business plan for it. I have everything in place. I have schedules and when I want things released. But that's really because when I talk to people and they do interviews with me, if they have something coming up, I try to drop their interview around that time. Yeah. So that they can use it for, more exposure, more reels, things like that.
That's incredible because like it's funny. I'm seeing a lot of like similarities between you and I, and like other people I know as well. Because it's funny, a lot of people I know who are mentally ill. I also have a couple different mental illnesses, or I've had like different mental illnesses that have waxed and waned throughout my life. And I've noticed people who struggle a lot with their mental health, they are like hyper creative people, because I'm the same as you, that I have like all these different things going on. I'm doing like music, comedy, podcasting. And like I was just talking to one of my friends yesterday too, who he's like such a creative person. He like paints and he draws, and he's like responsible for all these different music bands. He's a musician and like an author, all these things. And it's like he also struggles with like depression and stuff like that. So it's like it's pretty interesting how I guess, I don't know, you can almost see a relationship with like creative sensitivity. Like creative people are usually very sensitive, right? And then sensitive people usually struggle with their mental health, like because they have a hard time like kind of numbing themselves to the chaos that's going on around them, you know?
Yeah, I think it's more like it gives our brain a break. You don't really have to think when you're doing something like painting or drawing. Your brain just kind of goes, and it gives your brain a break from all the things that are running around all day.
Yeah.
So for me, like when I'm either like writing something out, or even when I'm interviewing somebody, I'm just sitting back and listening. My brain is off.
Yeah.
So for me, it's kind of therapeutic, and I'm learning, and I love to learn. So.
Gotcha. Okay. So my next question for you is related to mental health. So I personally struggled to find, and it kind of goes in hand with what you were saying. And, you know, you almost sort of answered the question, but I do want to talk more about it. I personally, somebody who struggled with my mental health, I don't have the highest income right now. Hopefully that's going to change. But as somebody who doesn't make more than like $4,000 or $5,000 a month, I'm on a low budget health insurance plan. I don't have the best health insurance. I personally found that I had a lot of trouble finding a good therapist with shitty health insurance. I did find one eventually. I have a therapist now that I'm very happy with, but the journey and the lengths I had to take to find a good therapist, it took me like 5 years. I'm kind of curious to know what your experience is like. Have you also had trouble finding a good therapist?
So for me, I was never really one for therapy when I was younger, just because my family didn't talk about it. But in 2020, I had decided to start seeing one because I have a very severe trauma that I came out with last year publicly. But when I was talking to this therapist, she was great, but she was coddling me, and I'm not the kind of person you can coddle. You're so brave. You're so strong. Like, I'm hot too, but you didn't say anything about that. Like, give me something useful, lady. You know, that's how I felt. I was just like, give me something I can use. I know all these things. I already know, like, I'm a confident person. It's not that I feel like I don't deserve anything or I don't know my value. The problem is I don't know how to channel this differently. That's why I'm here. And it was just like, this is not working for me. And then I lost my sister, and I was like,
I'm sorry.
Therapy. You know, try not to curse, but like, screw therapy. I'm done. Like, how can I possibly even worry about that? You know?
Yeah.
And thank you, by the way. But after that, like up until this year, really, I could not find one that fit because I don't respect men in that sense. Men have to talk to me a very certain way when you're correcting me on things. Yeah. Otherwise, as a trauma response, I tune you out. You're trash. Like, I won't listen to you. There's very few men that can tell me what to do, and I will actually listen or give me advice.
Did you not have, were you not able to find a female therapist?
It's all the females that I had either spoken to on the phone, like, and this is me, okay?
Yeah.
I'm very particular. If she's too soft-spoken, nope. If she's, you know, too overly friendly, she seems too eager, like, nope. You know, I just, like, I think at that time I just really didn't want one, like, at all. And then I just happened to find one that did fit, to where I was like, this is what's happening, like this B word and this B word and this B word. And then the dude was like, and it was a guy, it's a guy.
Yeah. Oops, I think you muted yourself. You just muted yourself. Hey, you muted yourself. I can't hear you. Hello?
My phone was ringing.
Okay. You were going off. Okay. So backtrack. You were going off and you just muted yourself. I may keep that in the audio because it's funny, or I might edit it out. But anyways, backtrack. You were kind of, I could tell you were ranting by the way your facial expression was, but I don't know what you were saying because it was muted. So, but yeah.
I said it was up until this year I found a male therapist, believe it or not. And I would go in and I'm like, this B word, this B word, this B word. And he would just stop me and go, so why do we care about this B word?
Yeah.
I'm going, well, I really care about it. But the way that it's presented when he says things to me, it's like, oh,
yeah,
got it. Cool. Because it's like me figuring it out for myself. I need to know that I figured it out for myself,
Okay.
and I can't be coddled either because my therapist is not afraid to tell me about myself.
Yeah.
Not afraid. I don't think that's toxic. Like, maybe it is. Bitch, I love her. Yeah.
That's funny that you said, I heard you say earlier before that you didn't like when some people were too soft-spoken or too coddly for you. This is actually sort of a mental debate I'm having right now. And these are, by the way, these are the kind of conversations I seek to have on my podcast. I like to ask questions that no one knows the answer to, but or we can't find the answer to, like those types of questions. But I've been having a mental debate on what's the right way to approach addiction. So for example, I've struggled on and off with different addictions in my life, like cigarette addiction, etc. Is it, in your opinion, do you think it's better to have tough love and to okay, to simplify it, let's just say cigarettes. If I want to quit smoking cigarettes, is it better for me to tell myself or to have a therapist or a counselor tell me like, this is not good, Andrea, you're wasting your life, and to be very firm? Or is it better to be like, hey, have love and compassion for yourself. You will quit. You just need to take time. In my head, I'm like, I don't know what the right approach is. And I don't know what the right approach for me is. I don't know if it's something that's it depends on the person, or if there is kind of a right or wrong answer to that. What's your opinion on that?
Well, there's definitely no right or wrong answer to start. Yeah. It definitely differs from every person.
Yeah.
Just I need somebody who's going to be a little tougher on me. That's what I need. That's the only way I'll listen. If you need someone that's going to gently guide you in the right direction or lead by example that you'll follow, then you need to do it that way because that works for you. Everybody knows what works for them. But bottom line in the discussion, especially when it comes to addiction, if you don't want to stop, you're not going to, no matter what anybody says to you.
Gotcha.
It's entirely up to you and when you're ready.
Yeah, no, to me, that's the toughest one. Or if we take it to a more extreme example, like somebody who's drinking, it's let's say you have somebody in your family, just a hypothetical situation. There's a father with a wife and kids, and he's drinking, and the kids are suffering. The wife is suffering. There's violence in the house. What's the way to approach that? Do you say hey, you piece of shit, you're fucking up your whole family, get your shit together or else I'm going to fucking divorce you? Or is the better approach to say hey, I love you and I'm going to hold your hand through this? It's to me, it's just it's such a complicated and difficult situation,
But in that kind of situation, I would just leave. Why are you staying there holding your hand? Fuck you, I'm leaving. Let me see the direct results, because that is what's going to jumpstart, if they really care, the addiction and getting over it and recovery. That's what's going to jumpstart that, seeing what you lost is what's going to fix it. But staying in a toxic relationship like that with your children to hold their hand,
no, I guess tough love has its place. Or the answer could be maybe the people around you need to be tough, but you can have self-compassion for yourself. Maybe there's kind of a mixture of the two. Maybe that individual needs to hear his family say you're fucking up, but maybe in his own heart or his own mind he could have compassion for himself. So maybe that's what the split is,
or maybe a mix of both. You're fucking up and you're worth more than this. We know you're worth more than this, so let's get it together, because that's literally what my family said to me.
No, I actually like that approach. It's like a mixed approach. It's you're fucking up, that's the truth, we still love you and believe you could change, but you better fucking change, bitch. That's I like that.
We did not go through what we went through in the teenage years for you to end up like this.
Okay, so I have another question for you about mental health, and then we're going to move on from the mental health topic so we don't stay up the whole time. But I like having these conversations. Okay, so one thing I discovered that you and I had in common is that we were both diagnosed with borderline personality disorder. So I'm kind of curious to hear about your story, what kind of symptoms were you having? I'm curious to see if our situations line up, if there's similarities between us.
So I had no idea borderline personality disorder existed. My family, again, we didn't talk about mental health, which is really weird because my mom worked in the mental health field. Mm-hmm. And I kind of feel like my mom knew that I had borderline, but she was trying to channel it as more of bipolar. The reality is I did not understand emotions. I didn't cry at the appropriate times. I felt 3 emotions, and that was ecstatic, livid, and suicidal. And that was it. Okay. And I had no idea why. And I'd feel things so much deeper than everyone else. So obviously you always pop off, you take things to the next level. No, I feel it to the next level. This is what it feels like to me.
Yeah.
You know? And then once I got diagnosed, I look at the emotion wheel, I'm like, what?
Yeah.
What is all these? Like, what is this? There's so many colors and so many words. Like, what are all these? And it was embarrassing because as a 30-year-old plus, I'm sitting here with a doctor and they're explaining, like, this is disappointment. This is anger. This is slightly depressed. This is just sad. I'm like, what the fuck is sad?
Yeah.
Like, it's where like you don't want to die, but like you're not feeling that great. Like, that's a thing. Like, what?
Yeah, no, I can relate to that. I think that's one of the markers of borderline personality disorder is that they call it black and white thinking. And I don't think you have to have borderline personality disorder to have this. I think there's a lot of people who struggle with this, whether or not they're diagnosed with this disorder. But it's like exactly what you said. It's that emotional dysregulation. When something upsets you, you don't know how to put that on a scale meter of like 1 to 10. It's like 0 to 10. And I don't know if this is right. I could just be talking shit, but as far as I know, I think that's why it's called, that's why it got the name borderline. Cause it's like, there's a border and you're always teetering between the two. You don't know how to like gradually go up and down, you know?
So the best way that I explain it is like this. Cause for me, I feel they change so rapidly that I can never nab what I'm feeling.
Yeah.
So the way that I explain it is if, like, for example, bipolar, you're at a road and there's a fork in that road and at one end is this and at one end is that. Borderline is just one road and everything's at the end. Good luck. That's borderline. So, for example, I'd sit at my desk at work. And again, I thought this was normal, people. Like, just before I say this, just realize at the time, I really thought all this was normal. And it wasn't until I started getting weird looks that I'm like, maybe it's not. But I'd sit at my desk at work and I'd take payments. And I would be happy, go lucky me. And then like nothing, tears are streaming down my face and I want to jump in front of a screen. And I have no idea what caused the flip. And then 15 minutes later, I'm like, yay! You know, they look at me like, what the fuck? And I'm like, what? Like,
I think sometimes borderline personality and bipolar get confused because they hear the word bi and they think that it's the same thing. But I know people in my family who have bipolar. And from what I understand, bipolar is longer lengths of these depressions and mania. So somebody that I know in my family who has bipolar, when they go through a depressed phase, it could be like 3 months of I can't get out of my bed. And then 3 months of I'm up at 3 o'clock in the morning, like singing karaoke when everybody's asleep. That's what bipolar is. It's like longer stretches of emotional dysregulation. And borderline personality, I think, is like daily, like it could be like within seconds. It's not like I'm depressed for months. It's like, I want to kill myself at 1 o'clock. And by 3 o'clock, I'm the happiest I've ever been in my entire life.
Tacos. Well, the thing is, borderline can be also diagnosed with bipolar at the same time. Gotcha. Believe it or not. Because it could last a long period of time. The thing is, we just never know. Could be 5 minutes, could be 15 minutes, could be 5 years. Suck it up. My problem with my borderline and what I really need to hone in on, I'm still working on it, is splitting. I split so frequently and it's horrible because that fixated person becomes, and I know it's not a technical diagnosis, but because I have ADHD, I was taking a medication for ADHD and I didn't realize it was exacerbating that fixated person for me. It was literally like obsessive love disorder. I don't want to interrupt you, but just for the listeners who aren't aware, can you explain what splitting is so they can follow the story? So when you have borderline personality disorder, one of the common symptoms is to have a fixated person. This fixated person does not have to be romantic. It could be a friend, a family member. It could be the mailman. It doesn't matter. Somebody that you put on a pedestal above everyone else. They're the hero of your story. So splitting is where they do something that will trigger you, which for a borderline could be as simple as changing your facial expression to a negative one, or not answering in a certain amount of time that they think you should, cancel, change plans. Very minimal things that most people would just brush off would be a big deal are devastating to a borderline. Yeah. So when that happens, there's something called splitting, which is where you go from being on this pedestal to you are literally dirt beneath my feet. And I'm going to make you feel like you are dirt beneath my feet. Some people get the explosive anger portion. I fortunately do not get angry, so I don't have that. But there has been like violent outbursts I've seen or I've read about, I've heard from other people who are borderlines. It can get like very dangerous, to be honest. But the problem is when you're done splitting as a borderline, you don't remember the split. So for me, it's sending 18 paragraphs, 10 missed calls to a person who ain't answering and still somehow not getting the point across that I wanted to because I couldn't convey what I was feeling because I didn't know what I was feeling.
Yeah.
We get something and we think we're feeling something, and little do we know if we sit back for a minute or two, we're like, oof, emotions are temporary visitors. Got it. Okay. I don't actually feel this way.
Yeah. No, that's another that. Okay, we definitely have the same thing. Like we were both probably diagnosed correctly because, and I think I have other disorders as well. I don't just have this one, but like I definitely have this one because I can relate to the unable to understand that emotions are temporary. And I think that's why the black and white things happen, because it's like when you feel pain, you think that's permanent. Like you think like this is going to be my life. And that's why if it was permanent, then it makes sense to be like freaking out, because it's like, if I'm going to be this sad forever, what the fuck? Like, you know what I mean? But it's like, no matter how many times it occurs, like you can't remember like, oh yeah, the last time I had my period, I got like this. Like you don't remember, you don't remember those things. You know what I mean?
An important thing to mention is that borderline personality disorder is known as the most painful mental health condition. They compare it to having third-degree burns emotionally. That's how sensitive borderlines are. 1 in every 10 borderlines die by suicide.
Yeah.
And the mean number of times that a borderline will try in their lifetime is 3 for every borderline.
Yeah.
So I like to explain that to people, not to make it like bring the party down, but just to educate that what seems like it shouldn't be a big deal to most people really is to a borderline. If you have somebody in your life that is a borderline and they ever start mentioning things that kind of give you red flags as far as suicide is concerned, take them seriously, very seriously, immediately.
One thing I've noticed about, for me personally, most of my symptoms manifested in my romantic relationships, because you were talking about having this special person that you rely on for like emotional validation. For me, that was always romantic relationships. And when I was diagnosed with this, when I was like, I'm 34 now, and I think I was diagnosed when I was like 24, I remember like wanting to kind of tell my friends and my family about it and be like, hey, just to get some sympathy or some compassion. And it was amazing. All my friends and family, they were like, there's no way you have that. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. It manifests in my private life. When I go, like, I look like the most together person, like in real life. Like I run a business. Like I mean, look at you, like you know, same thing. Like I run a business. I work out almost every single day. I mean, sometimes I go through depressions where I don't work out for a few weeks, but overall, like in the big picture thing, I work out all the time. I'm like constantly busy. I take care of myself. Like I'm always like on the lookout for things. So when I like came out and told people about this, they were like, there's no way you were misdiagnosed. I'm like, you don't get it. You just don't see it because it only really comes out in my private romantic life. Like I'm able to kind of carry myself like this like really responsible person in real life. And then at my home life, you know, when I'm in love with somebody or I'm dating somebody, it's like all the shit comes out. And it's like, trust me, if I were to interview every single guy I ever dated, they would be like, yeah, she has that. Like, you know what I mean? It's just like, so that's like the other frustrating thing is that a lot of people don't realize that a lot of these people seem like they have it together, but unless you're actually like living with them or dating them, you don't really know like what it's actually like. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, for me, it pops out in my friendships. It pops out in my family. Like it is abundantly clear. To me, it doesn't, sorry to interrupt. To me, it doesn't pop out in my friendships or family unless it's a really close friendship or family. So like casual acquaintances, people I work with, like I'm totally cool with. But if I ever have like a best girlfriend that like ends up being like almost like, it's like we're so close, we might as well be dating at this point. Or same thing, if it's like a family member that I feel really close with, it'll come out there. But in general, like no one would ever know, you know? Yeah. Well, I mean, for me, like most of my friend circle have been in my circle for 15 plus years. So they're ingrained, you know, so they get that sometimes, that backlash. But there are like a select few that it'll pop out and I'm like, ooh, let me tuck that crazy back in real quick. Tuck it in, you know? That's why I love
Have you ever lost any friends over this? Like that you lashed out and some people were like, I don't want to talk to you anymore?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Because I also have other mental health conditions. So sometimes when I pop off, I pop off. Because it takes a lot for me to get to that level. So number one, they probably deserved it. But then again, no one really deserves that at the same time. So depending on the situation, because again, I don't get the explosive anger. It's not like I'm violent, but I am vicious with my words. Okay. And I can apologize.
I can relate to that too. This is a problem I've experienced throughout my life too, is that when I was actually in a situation where I was done wrong by somebody, where like somebody hurt me or somebody took advantage of me, my reaction was so extreme that from the outside perspective, I looked like the bad guy. Like I was dating a guy once and we had roommates, and this guy was a very abusive guy. Like there's no, I'm not going to call it his name. It's not like that, but like he was an extremely abusive guy. But I was like, because of my emotional reactions, and we had lived with roommates at the time, people wouldn't hear him. They would just hear my reactions, and they would hear me saying like horrible stuff to him. Like, you fucking piece of shit. You're worthless. You're not a real man. Like this, that's all they would hear. And they would just assume that I was the asshole. And like, granted, I was an asshole, because if I was really being abused by him, the best thing I could have done was just leave him. You know what I mean? So at that point, I might as well have just been as big of an asshole as him. But that was always a problem I had, was that when I was hurt in some kind of way, my reaction was so over the top that it would suddenly what they did didn't even look like a big deal anymore, because I looked like the bad one, you know?
It's not just that too. It's the abandonment issues that come with borderline.
Yeah.
Borderlines. The thing with borderlines is we self-sabotage constantly, but a lot of borderlines end up staying in bad relationships because we have abandonment issues. It's more like, please don't leave me, but stay by while I do everything in my power to make you want to leave me. You know, so I can have that self-fulfilling prophecy. I'm going to act like I want you to go and do everything I can to make you want to leave, but please don't leave me. You know?
Oh my God. I can relate to a lot of this. Probably the listeners are like, holy shit, these bitches are crazy.
Listen, I tell people that my maiden call is the sound of a shaking pill bottle. Okay. So they can't come to me 3 months from now and be like, you crazy bitch. Like, I told you, I told you so, you know?
Have you ever been, I'm actually a lot better now. Like I also want to explain to the audience that we're talking a lot of these symptoms were when I first got diagnosed with this. Like, so any of my ex-boyfriends who are listening to this and know me when I was 25, 24, whatever, 26-ish, you can drop in the comments section. Yep, I agree. This bitch is crazy. But I do want to make it clear to the audience that I'm a 34-year-old woman now, and a lot of these issues I have resolved. Not completely. I still have a lot of work to do and a lot of figuring out. Right now, I'm at a place where a lot of the behaviors have stopped, but a lot of the pain that was under the behaviors isn't gone. So I'm not so much taking out my aggression on my relationships anymore, but I'm taking them out on myself. Like I'm kind of like not treating myself well. Like I'm getting depressed, and I'm not doing as much as I should, or I'm not like taking care of myself the way that I used to. And it's because it's like, I've learned how to stop a lot of these behaviors, but I don't know how to heal the pain that's caused the behaviors to begin with. And that's where I'm currently at in this journey, you know?
Well, a lot of where borderline comes from, and it's not the only place, there's other things, genetics, all the things, but a lot of where borderline comes from is not being validated as a child. Mm-hmm. Your emotional needs not being met, you know? So, you know, when you get told like, you don't know what tired is, or nobody helped me with my homework, those kinds of things, narcissistic parents don't realize can be very, very devastating to a child and taken into adulthood. Yeah. So, although borderline does not have to be a lifelong condition as far as suffering from symptoms, they can be managed. Just like you said, yours are pretty managed right now. You just have to, you know, obviously work on the other end of it, which is the shadow work underneath that, where you're like, where can I fix this so that I can get that validation and get that emotional needs met, you know, which still with you, girl. I don't have it either. I just got it hasn't even been a year for me. I've been diagnosed, but
I'm doing the right now. I'm in the process of doing the shadow work and kind of like looking at the demon straight in the face and figuring out what it is. And it is not easy. It is really scary. Like to just like, because this is what happens. You have to do this shadow work in order to like understand yourself, in order to get better. But in the process of doing your shadow work, you have to think about things from your childhood, and then you get re-traumatized. And then in the process of getting re-traumatized, you then continue the cycle. So it's like, you have, right now I'm trying to find a way to do that shadow work and to look at my life and analyze myself, but like emotionally distance myself from the process. And that's not easy. That's really difficult, you know.
Not even possible.
Yeah.
So, I mean, for me, like I can't even get, like, I'm not even near going to my shadow work from a child because I had something so severe after that I hadn't even worked through. And that I just got through, in like the end of last year, October, was when I first like went public, told the story and everything. So now I'm still kind of like breathing from that because it was like a whole big eye-opening experience. My total perspective on myself changed. Like my whole identity basically changed. Yeah. And now it's like, all right, now I'm going to hone in on who this identity is. And then I can start with shadow work.
Yeah, it's a process. Yeah, it's a process.
It's a lifelong process. People don't realize you spend the rest of your life healing from things that you forget about.
Yeah. By the time you finally have it all figured out, you'll be dead. Like it's
honestly, but you know what? Because you know what? At least you worked on it your whole life and you constantly got better and grew and learned more about yourself along the way. And that's honestly really what matters.
Okay. I do have one more question for you about this that will segue into another conversation. But my last question about your mental health stuff is, do you have any tips for people who are coping with mental health stuff? Like when we're going through these processes of dealing with trauma and doing shadow work, is there anything that you have personally that you can kind of go to kind of escape it all? Meditation? Is there any going to the spa, like whatever? Like, is there anything that works for you?
As far as escaping, I like to write. And for any mental health related, whether you're trying to escape, figure it out, whatever the case may be, really for anybody, for any reason, write it out. For example, borderlines. If I'm feeling something and I'm ready to send that paragraph or those 3 paragraphs, I pause and I write it down. And then I wait and then I look at it and I'm going, whoa, didn't even send any of that. Glad I never sent that. Let me fix this. So what I do is I write letters to people. I personalize them. You hurt me in these ways. Mm-hmm. And then I just fold it up and I either throw it out, rip it up, burn it, whatever I need to do. It's gone. I feel validated. My emotions were validated. I was heard, even if it was just by me. And now it's gone. I can let it go. When we hold on to emotions like that, not just for borderlines, for anyone, when you're working through things, when you hold on to emotions, when they're supposed to be temporary visitors, you're really poisoning yourself and your mindset so that you have to find something to escape from it. Instead, just write it out, look at it, go, okay, I'll let it go and keep it pushing instead of letting it really take over. But I also like to relax and have downtime. I like to journal, but I like to make the pages because I have ADHD. I can't be trusted to sit and write like a full actual thought unless it's a letter. And in that case, I'm very angry or upset or so on and so forth. But I like to make I'll buy stickers from stores or online, and I'll buy buttons and pieces of paper and like ribbons, and you get the whole gist. I have a whole bookshelf full of stuff, and I just literally make pages, pretty pages, because then I can leave, come back to it. And,
no, that's great. I a lot of people tell me I should write. Like I've heard therapists tell me that, and like different people in my life, and for some reason I'm resistant to do it. So maybe I should really genuinely give that a try because it does sound. Yeah. Okay, so I have some more questions for you. I'm like, we're going to get to a more lighthearted topic, but we can dodge this topic if you don't want to talk about it. I'm going to ask because you had it on your profile, but if you don't want to talk about it, just say, hey, I don't want to go there. And then we can just dodge it altogether. But you had mentioned on your write-up to me that you were an attempted murder survivor. Are you comfortable talking about this topic, or do you want to just move to the next thing? Okay. My only question about you, I don't even want to talk about the details because I don't want you to feel traumatized or anything by it. But my only question for you is, I'm curious to know, how has this experience changed your perspective on life? Do you have a new perspective on life after going through this?
So when it initially happened, I was 18. I had no memory of most of it. I knew I had gotten kidnapped and I knew I walked home, and that was what I knew. It wasn't until last year when I went to the hospital that I unlocked all of those repressed memories of the torture, all of the things that I won't get into detail about. You can look at my YouTube, see the very cringeworthy video of me telling it thoroughly online, which was uncomfortable. It's still uncomfortable thinking about it. I'm like, please don't go watch it. But like, if you want to, go watch it. I haven't even rewatched it. But it was like unlocking the rest of those that I went from like initially being embarrassed, like that's embarrassing. You were 18 and got kidnapped. Ew. Don't tell anybody that. To holy shit, like, wait a minute, bitch, like dial it back. You're the shit. how the fuck, what the fuck, you're the best. Like that was really like my whole mindset really changed, but it also really changed my perspective on men at the time, even though I only thought I was kidnapped. Like men, I didn't trust nobody. I'm not getting in your car. Don't ask me for nothing. Don't even look at me. And I was very, very toxic to men for a very long time.
Gotcha.
Like intentionally, I'm not proud of that. And obviously it's taken quite a bit of therapy to be nicer to men. Limited. Some of them deserve it.
Yeah.
But, it's, it really changed my whole perspective. I have no romantic attachment to sex. It's really changed my entire person. You lose your entire identity when something like that happens.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. It's like a PTSD type of reaction. It's like, which I think happens in borderline. By the way, I think a lot of the times these like emotional reactions in borderline personality disorder, it is, I'm no doctor and I can't diagnose it, but I've always kind of looked at it as like, this is an extreme like PTSD type of thing. It's like something happened in my childhood and now this is my coping mechanism. This is my way to react it. So I can imagine like, it makes sense to me why you had issues with men after that, because if the person in the situation was a man, it's like, that's like a PTSD situation. Now you associate men and the physical power, whatever it is, with like something negative, like, makes total sense,
Yeah. I mean, for me too, it was just like I have complex post-traumatic stress disorder.
Yeah.
I developed that after my sister passed away, because when I started therapy for my trauma and started really getting into things and trying to figure it out, my sister passed away 6 weeks later, like 6 sessions in, my sister was gone. I'm like, what? And she was the same age that I was when I went through my trauma. So it was just like a banger after banger. My brain went, see ya. It was gone. It checked out, said, nope, we out. And that was it. Like literally signed the paperwork to quit the job, which was me. I was the job. And just like totally left the scene. So when something like that happens, like a trauma over a trauma, which is basically what happened, you get complex post-traumatic stress disorder, which is really, you just get like dissociation. The night terrors get worse. Like I would go into my kitchen to grab something, to be daylight. And then I'd blink and it was night outside. And I'm like, how long have I been standing here? What the fuck did I do in this time? Like, what time is it? I have no idea what happened.
Yeah, you zone out. I understand that. Yeah.
It's terrifying. Absolutely terrifying. But yeah, it completely changed me as a person. But I'm glad I know everything that happened, because there were a lot of unanswered questions for over 13 years. So
besides aside from like some of the downfalls of your change in perspective, like having trust issues, were there actually also any positive changes of perspective? Like, hey, I feel more grateful to be alive now that I survived this. Was there anything like that came out of it?
I mean, it definitely like gave me an ego boost. Like, dang, you went through that?
Yeah.
Which I already I had a pretty good confidence level, but it really just took it to that next level. Like I'm untouchable, not to like a conceited level, but to like, you could never, then like people started to now come at me negatively. It didn't affect me anymore. Cause I'm like, you've never gone through something like I've gone through. So now when people would say things to me, it wouldn't bother me anymore. Cause now I realize like they have their own traumas. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That affects them. And something about me affects them in that way. It bothers them. And their trauma, it triggers them in some way. And that's why people come at people negatively. Something in me triggers something in you. And now I recognize that in people, like, oh, we're all freaking damaged. Got it. So it helped me like really change my perspective on everybody and everything. Just honestly.
And I'm sure that confidence you're talking about, like that ego boost of like, hell, if I could go through this, what can I go through? I'm sure that also gives you the confidence to get on stage and do comedy. Cause like a lot of my friends in my personal life, they always ask me like, how could you have the balls to do comedy? And I think that's what it is. I think if you've been through so much in your life, it's like, this doesn't even like the idea of I guess what people are afraid of to get on stage and do comedy, they're afraid of the humiliation, having the eyes on you. It's like, we've already been humiliated. We've already I've heard, I'm a big fan of Whitney Cummings. Do you know who Whitney Cummings is? Or are you a fan of her?
I am, but her voice, I can only take for a certain amount of time. I have to enjoy her in intervals. That's all.
I will say this about her. I'm not as big a fan of her stand-up as I am of her podcast. I know that's mean to say, but that's just my genuine, honest opinion. I think her older stand-up was excellent. Like it was like pretty unique. And I think as she's gotten older, she's kind of like washed out to what the society wants. Like she kind of stopped doing her own stuff. And now she kind of just like play, you know what I mean? Like some people play the game and they just kind of become what everything else is. So I'm not as big into her comedy. I think her comedy is more like a business now. But her podcast, I think, is very original and very honest and straightforward. And where was I even going with this? What were we just? Oh, comedy. Okay. She was saying, I've heard her say multiple times on her podcast that I really relate to. She said that in a way, comedians are sort of taking the power back of humiliation. It's like, I've already been humiliated in my life. I've already been damaged in my life. Now, if I go on stage and humiliate myself, it's not you doing it now. It's me doing it. So it's like this empowering feeling of like taking it back. And it's like, I don't have to feel shame for how that you think I suck, because I'm going to go up here and willingly suck in front of you. And I'm the one who did it and chose to do it. So fuck you. And I'm like, that like kind of rung a bell in my head. I'm like, that makes so much sense. Like a lot of people who go up here, they're just like kind of owning their shame. You know what I mean?
I mean, for me, I was just like, you want to listen to me? Like somebody's listening? Because I was the youngest of 3 girls growing up. We were each 15 months apart. So the older 2 were like besties. And it was like, nah, you know, to me, like they didn't hang out with me. I wasn't cool, you know? So I just kind of like, I taught myself to read at 5. No one really fucked around, paid attention to me like that.
Yeah.
So when I actually started comedy 3 years ago, like the same year that everything went down at the end of the year.
Yeah.
So, I got on the stage and I was like, oh, fuck yeah. Cause I'd already written out like a 45-minute set. I already had a 45-minute set written out before I even touched a microphone, just because I've always been a storyteller. I've always liked to capture the attention of people around me, but in a positive way, not like a, look at me, I should make this, like, you know, I'm not like one of those like Mardi Gras girls. I mean, I will maybe this summer, topless on a yacht is going to happen. But beyond that, you know, it was just more like, people are finding this funny. This is bringing laughter. This is bringing them joy. And they're paying attention to me at the same time.
Yeah.
It's a win-win, you know? So I've never had public speaking issues. I've always been the public speaker for the family, basically, you know?
Yeah. You don't seem like a shy person at all to me. You don't seem like somebody. No, I'm definitely on the shyer side. Like I've had to learn how to have stage presence and learn how to, you know, be confident on stage. But just like for the reasons I said, I've had the power to learn how to do that. But I would imagine, like you said, it comes more naturally for somebody like you who's already been that type of character throughout your life, you know?
Well, I mean, it really started when I went to college, because up until college, I was very insecure. People made fun of me all the time. And I just went to college and I was like, I'm 2 hours away from anybody who has ever said anything negative about me. I am going to walk into every room like everyone in that room is there for me. And I just channeled that energy. And it wasn't fake it till you make it. It was say it until you believe it's true, because it already is. You know, it was just taking back that confidence for myself.
Yeah, no, I want to get back on stage. I'm ashamed to admit that I haven't in a couple weeks, because I've been, like I was talking before, how I am going through a depression right now, like because I'm dealing with a lot of those. Right now, I'm in the process of like, I'm in therapy and dealing with a lot of that shadow work. And I went off my medication because I've been wanting to go off my medication for a long time. And I, for whatever reason, decided to do it now while I'm like in intensive therapy. Probably not the smartest move. So like a lot of bullshit has been like coming up that I need to deal with. And I'm ashamed to admit that I haven't been on stage for like a month now. So that's, again, there's like that coddling voice, like it's okay, but then there's like that tough love. Like right now I need a tough love person to be like, fuck you, I don't care what you're going through, get back on stage, you little bitch. Like I need someone to tell me that right now, you know?
Or somebody who's going to do both. Like what are the benefits of you getting back on stage right now? Will it bring you joy? Will bringing other people joy bring you joy? Will it be a positive experience, or will it be a negative one for you? And then you make your decision based on your answer.
It'll obviously be a positive experience. For me, it's just getting out of bed. Like, I'm like, I don't want to get out of bed. I'm just like, I'm literally doing my podcast in bed right now. I don't know if you guys can tell. Like, I've been in bed a lot. But no, I need to get out, and I kind of need a push right now. But I'll do it. I'm going to look for something this week and make that happen. You know, right now
Comedy Zone on Mondays. Comedy Zone on Mondays.
Where is it?
Don't try it. It's at St. Lazarus. St. Lazarus.
Okay. Yeah. What time does it go?
8 to 2.
Okay, that's good, because I get out of work like 7 that day, so I can just like come over there right after work.
There you go.
Okay, so I do have a few.
Comedy Zone.
Yeah, so I do have a few more questions. We're getting to that hour mark, so I don't want to keep you here too long. I know you're a busy woman and a mother.
At least that's cool.
Okay, I do take questions from the listeners. Somebody asked me this question and I didn't really have an answer. So I'm like, maybe I'll just give it to you. So shout out to Adrian Morales. He's a loyal listener and a friend. His question for me, which I'm going to pass on to you, was if you could be a famous comedian for a day, who would you be and why? I didn't really know how to answer that, but I'm wondering if you have an answer for that.
Taylor Tomlinson.
Okay. And why?
Well, number one, she's super hot. But number two, just I love her attitude. I love her mental health, the way she talks about it like it's nothing. Just to pick her brain, I would love to be her for a day. So
yeah, no, I really like her too. I used to listen to a lot of her stuff. I haven't listened to it lately, but I think I found out through Mark Norman, because Mark Norman is really good friends with what's his name? Sam Morris, right? Sam Morris. And then Sam Morris used to date Taylor Tomlinson. So that's how I found out about her.
Yeah, I don't know if you watched her like most recent Netflix special. I don't even know when it came out. It could have been like a year ago. Like that's recent. We don't watch TV at all. So, but it was all about mental health. And it was
I haven't watched it. Yeah, I've watched one of her things from years ago, but I haven't watched her most recent one. So I'll have to give that a check.
You have to, since you're in bed anyway. You know?
Yeah. All right. So last question. Okay. So you actually gave me a question on my podcast once that, thank you to you. That question was like the most successful topic on my podcast. Like, so and I'm going to throw it back at you because I want to hear your opinion on it.
Okay.
So you had asked me, what is my opinion of sex worker or not? It wasn't of sex workers. I'm sorry. You said, what's my opinion of people who have sex content pages? Like, so people who have private pages selling their sexual content. So I went on a whole like thing on my podcast saying how I used to be like, sort of not like pretty addicted to porn, I would say, not to the extreme, like I'm sure some guys are, but to the point where it had a pretty decent control over my life. So in the past, like maybe last year, I used to be very like pro porn and pro sex content and stuff like that. And then all of a sudden this year I had a flip, like where I decided that I wanted to like give up watching porn and stuff like that. So like my opinion on that is that I see the good and the bad in sex content. But right now I'm like in a place where I'm like, I don't really want to be involved in it. And to me, it's doing more damage to me than it is good. So now I'm going to flip the question back on you. And I want to know what your opinion is.
Well, to start from scientific research, porn is as addicting as cocaine.
Okay.
But I am for it. And here's why. Okay. It's not, and I actually prefer things like OnlyFans or Unfiltered to actual porn. The problem with porn is, number one, it can be, again, as addicting as cocaine. But number two, it can also really affect your skills in the bedroom, i.e. men for the most part, because they're trying to channel that energy. And that is all fantasy. It's all fantasy and people tend to forget it. The best part about things like OnlyFans and Unfiltered is, number one, it's all about seduction and teasing. You're not supposed to just be like, here's my butthole, unlock it for $5. You know, it's supposed to be seduction, teasing, like leading up. It's the fantasy in it that they're really paying for and buying into. It's like, that girl from my high school does have an OnlyFans. What's on it? Let's find out. They're running over to figure it out. They don't care what's on it. They just want to know what is on it, just to say that they know or they've seen it or they have it. You know, if you found out your high school principal from 10 years ago had a sex tape out, you'd go watch it. Not the whole thing, but you'd be interested because it's something that you know. That's really what's the best part about it. But as the opposite end, somebody who's creating, it's very empowering. Like for me, I have an Unfiltered, but you won't catch any nudes on there at all. Yeah. It's all lingerie, teasing, seduction, because that empowers me. Like, yes, you will pay money to see me and you won't even get to see me naked. Like, it's empowering for me.
I see that
kind of thing.
I think one of the, I do, and again, I do see the good and the bad. I'm not like, this is all bad. This is a piece of shit. One of the reasons why I was a little like hesitant was because I was curious about, definitely, I can see that the modern era of pornography is, first of all, I do want to say that the old era of pornography was incredibly disempowering to women, because it's like the people creating these websites are men and they're the ones reaping all the benefits. And these porn actresses who are probably all over Pornhub or whatever, they're not barely getting any money out of this. It's really the men on top who are getting money. So I think that's incredibly disempowering to women. However, the modern era of this, that now people can kind of take the control back and sell their own pornography. My thing is like, how does this affect people's private relationships? So, for example, if I'm dating a guy and he goes to Pornhub, I'm like, he has no relation to this woman. This is a total fantasy. But now if he goes on somebody's OnlyFans, to me, that's like, wait a second, like this is getting a little gray and borderline cheating at this point, where it's like, if you're going on somebody's website and it's like a very kind of personalized thing, it could be the girl next door, it could be somebody you know, like they're sending you messages. I feel like that could be damaging for like relationships. So I guess that was kind of one of my biggest issues with the modern version of pornography, you know?
It could be. You're absolutely right. And I mean, porn has such a grip on us and our generation, but here's why. Because before they had internet and Pornhub, we were maybe catching a nipple through static. Okay. So when they came out with internet porn, it was like, whoa. And it's still kind of weaning out of that phase. Yeah. So, but I get what you're saying about the relationships and about like, what if it's like the cashier at fucking Aldi's and you're looking at her butthole on OnlyFans and I'm supposed to not be mad. And you're absolutely right. But it depends on your relationship. Like, do you trust that your dude is not going to pursue that? Now, when it comes to messaging and stuff, that kind of borderline cheating, depending on what's being said. Like the first of all, you went to look, not to speak. Like, let's So, it all depends on the dynamics of your relationship, to be honest, and whether or not you trust your partner and all those things, so on and so forth. Oh, I could go into the whole spiel, but I think you guys kind of catch what I'm throwing here.
So from what I just to kind of like reiterate what you're saying, so I can understand, you're saying that yes, it is possible that people could use this platform for cheating, but it's no different than any type of cheating. It's up to the relationship. Like, for example, a guy could go to a strip club just because his friends are having drinks. Anything can happen there. On one hand, he could go there just to have a couple of drinks with his buddies, see a woman dancing, throw her $1 and go home. On the other hand, one of these women could approach him and say like, hey, I'll give you a handy in the back for $30 or whatever. I don't know how much it goes for. And so what you're saying is it's like, it's not really the platform itself that's the damage. It's the person and the individual can you trust them? Is that kind of what you're saying?
Beautifully said. Yeah.
Okay. I guess what I want to make a point and reiterate to like the public is that I think people in relationships should talk to each other about this before going on these websites. Like, I don't think that men should view this type of website as regular porn. I think they should go to their girlfriend and go to their wife and say like, hey, I use these websites. What's your opinion on this? Are you comfortable with me going on this? Like, I think that's like one of the things that I see like, okay, this could be a damaging thing for society if these questions aren't answered before you enter relationships. And to me, that was like one of the sticky things about it,
I mean, my thing, and it's always a suggestion because I did teach classes to people on how to better please your partner, which really just stems down to communication and seduction. But beyond that, I would suggest make your own videos. Make your own videos with your partner. Why do you need to go to Pornhub and things like that? Like, I get it, it's the fantasy, but mostly men just go for like the moans and the blowjobs. So head video, and he won't go anywhere, I promise.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. That's kind of something I did recently where I started realizing, because when I watched pornography, I used to watch like the fantasy type, like they were talking about, like the kind of like the older school, like not the OnlyFans type of stuff. Like I used to watch like the videos like on Pornhub or whatever. And I noticed that did have like a big effect on the way I view sex, to the point where I don't even know how to fantasize about my own shit anymore. And to the point where I don't even know how to like use my own imagination. And also to the point where I'm like comparing myself to other women. I'm like, oh, wow. So one thing I did recently that, as I stopped watching pornography, and that has been incredibly therapeutic to me, is I've done exactly what you said. I started taking like photos of myself, not to like show it to the people on the internet. Sorry, I'm not selling them, but just like, I started taking photos of myself and just like looking at them so I can kind of like start to see my natural self as sexy and not these like,
I got videos, pictures, like I got all the things. I'm with you there. I even got just like audio. Yeah. I used to do voiceovers. So I got that on lock, but it's important. And even like to bring it, not to take it on a whole new topic, but to add into it too, even toys should be used only at most half the time, because number one, it's taking all of the work away. Number two, there's so many different kinds of orgasms that you can have that limits the type that you're going to have. But also number three, like it's like a job at that point, you know, like if I hear one more thing about this damn rose, I'm like, I'm going to lose it. I'm going to lose it. Like you're putting a vacuum cleaner on your, and then you wonder why men can't make you come. Like,
wait, are you saying to use toys in the bedroom or just solo? Is it, or both?
Either or is fine, but only half of the time. You should not every time, even by yourself solo, be using something to help you.
Gotcha. Because in a way, it's like being addicted to porn. It's like, well, now that you have these intense images in your head, now regular people's sex with people like smelling and farting and like now like regular people's sex doesn't look appealing anymore. So you're saying it's the same thing with these toys. That actually happened to me, by the way. And also, I want to make this clear to the audience because when I released that video about why I stopped watching pornography, I was worried that I would come across as like I'm anti-sex. Like I can't talk about sex. I'm like this super conservative person. That's not the case at all. I'm okay with talking about sexuality. I'm okay with joking about it. It was just more like a personal decision that I made that I didn't want to watch porn anymore. And I wanted people to like kind of like think about, is it a good thing or a bad thing for them? And is it something that they should personally be contributing to? But as far as like talking about sex, I'm open to talking about it and like joking about it on stage and everything. But one thing I did notice in the past, like going back to what we were saying, I started using a vibrator and then like, you know, just by myself. And when the battery died, like I didn't have a replacement battery. So I was like, all right, I guess I just have to use my hands. And it wouldn't work.
Wouldn't do it. Yeah.
Because I just got used to using the vibrator every single time. So like by the time the fucking like the battery died, I was like, damn it. It died in the middle of it. You know what I mean? I was in the middle of using it. And I was like, I gotta finish. Like I gotta do something. And I was like there like for an hour with my hand, like this isn't working. Like what the hell? You know?
Because you're taking the sensitivity away. You're really like, bitch. You don't realize like you're either extending the amount of time you're using it each time, even if it's just like a minute or so, or you're going up in the settings or both. Even so, if you're using it every day, even both. And as you're doing that, you're slowly desensitizing yourself. So unless you have for a hand, you're not going to be able to do it with your hand. And neither is your partner, what people don't realize. And then they're like, these men can't satisfy me. Well, they don't have a vacuum cleaner for a mouth. So, or a vibrating electronic hand. So.
Okay, go back to what you were saying before about there's different ways to, like there's different orgasms. I've only had one type. What are the other types? I'm curious to know what those are.
There are a lot, so I won't list them all. I'll send you, I'll make a little infographic. You can give it out as a free little gift for anybody who listens. But there are many different types of orgasms for women. Yeah. I mean, squirting is one, and just like, there's different levels to it. Like, you have to really have fun with yourself to figure out different levels and what they feel like. And I can't like explain all of them. It would just
I've only ever had the clitoris kind. I've never had an orgasm through penetration. I've never squirted. I don't even know what, like, I know what it is. I've seen it in the videos I used to watch, but I've never, like, I can't even imagine it. Like, I can't even imagine that happening. And I kind of feel bummed out that I can only reach orgasm through my clitoris, which is great. I'm glad I can do it. But like,
what's wrong with that?
The women that I know who are like, oh, I squirted or I came during penetration. I'm like, I'm jealous. I don't know how to do that. I have no idea how to do that.
And you know what? For a really long time, I didn't either. It was easy for me to show men how to make their girls squirt or make girls squirt because I used to do it just to embarrass people. Like, 30 seconds. Teach me like, you know, it was fun for me. It was funny. I'm very mentally ill. Okay. But it wasn't until I actually had somebody give me this. It was called Orgasm Enhancement Cream. Now they gave me a bunch of samples and I'd give them out little gift packs for my podcast and things like that. But I don't give out anything that I don't try because I always test everything I give out. I stand by the shit I give out and the stuff that I advertise. So I always make sure I try it. And she was like, only use a little bit. And I was like, whatever. Because hello, I'm a sex educator. It's fine. I got this. I didn't leave my room for 2 days. And several bed sheets later, I was like, whoa. It was kind of like when they turn the lights on at the bar all of a sudden, everybody looks disheveled as fuck. That's how I looked for the next like week because it was intense. And that really helped me understand what I was showing other people. I was like, oh, got it. So I could do that to myself. Cool. Yeah. So sometimes it just takes something to show you that there's other avenues because I didn't even realize that was the whole thing. Yeah. the whole splash zone situation.
The splash zone. Have you ever come to have you ever, in your research, have you ever come to the understanding of what it is? Because I know there's an argument of like, it's just pee. Like a lot of people say, oh, it might just be pee or something like that.
There's probably small trace of pee in there. It's not pee. It's not.
Okay. Yeah.
It's another thing. I'm not going to get into the science of it because guess what? For every one person that's going to be like, that's totally true, there's going to be 7 more like, that's pee, that. And I just don't even want to get.
Yeah, I understand. It's like it's not even worth. I mean, I don't understand why it could be that hard to figure out if it's pee or not. Like I think I know what pee looks like and smells like. This has never happened to me, so I can't guarantee it for my own situation. But people who have like done this, like they haven't done an experiment where they like take it in a cup and and drink it or something. Like I think if you drink pee, you're going to know what it tastes like, you know?
Here's the thing. This is mostly why porn is an issue too. Okay. Yeah. It is not like that. It can be, but it's not. What they do in porn is they put water up there.
Okay.
Guys are out like that. That's not pee or squirt. It's water. Remember that porn is a fantasy. Okay. It's not always like that. I've seen it like hit a doorknob before, like, damn, bitch, but it was like a bullet, pew, and it was out. You know, it's more like a trickle, rain, water, just like any other wet person who has sloppy sex. Same thing. It's just, a splash zone without it actually being like Niagara Falls.
Yeah, gotcha. It's like, so the things that are in the videos are an extreme example of that. Yes. It's not like that crazy. Okay, that makes a lot more sense. Then maybe it's happened to me and I just didn't know it. It's possible.
Oh, you know.
Okay.
I've made some very strange guttural sounds. Like, you know.
Okay.
Yeah. We'll talk.
Yeah. All right. So we're reaching the end of the podcast. I'm sure we will talk soon because I'm going to try to come to that Monday open mic. If not this week, then the week after. So let's end the podcast here. So again, guys, this was Pranzata Podcast, episode 74. 75. I'm sorry. Episode 75. Let me know how you guys felt. Leave a comment below about anything you agreed with or disagreed with in our conversation. Can you relate to any of this stuff that we talked about, the mental health stuff, the sexual stuff, your opinions and views on these different topics? And let them know. I'm going to include a section below where they can tap on your stuff, but let them know where they can find you if they're in the Philly area and they want to see you perform, or if they do want to, find your mental health services and everything like that.
So most of my links are on my website. It's Kanooble.com, CAKANOOBLE.com. For my mental health, I am fixing up the website. I'm a one-woman show, but it's at mentallyKillProject.org. As far as live in Philly, I do have my own monthly comedy show called the All Cap Comedy and Music Showcase. And that's every second Saturday at Roxy Hall and Bistro in Roxborough. So come check me out there. If not, all of my upcoming shows are always on my website. So
nice. All right. It was a pleasure. That's it, guys. I hope you enjoyed the show. Have a good night, guys. Bye.